think what happened was Len Amato at HBO Films saw 99 Homes in Toronto and approached Ramin about working together and asked if he had any ideas. And Ramin said he'd always wanted to make Fahrenheit 451. And then once he got some interest from Len on that, he said, I'm going to start writing this, and I want to know if you'd be interested in playing Captain Beatty. And I said, of course. So that was how it started.
I just find it mad that I did not know about the book. I find that when I talk to people in America, it's been given loads to kids in school and in high school, but not in France, not as much. I just met a French journalist who was not aware of the book either. So no, I was aware of it. It came with the edition. Well, I was baffled by how current it was and by how adapted, even though it was in an alternative tomorrow, and it was. I mean, it's Cleveland, but how, even if it's sci-fi, but how adaptable to the world we live in it was.
Ramin says that Bradbury himself was not shy about making changes to his own work, and doing adaptations of Fahrenheit 451. He would make changes to it. So I think it was really a situation where you just wanted it to be as visceral and immediate as possible, and how do you accomplish that? And I think Ramin did an excellent job in that regard.
In 1953, he wrote that. He was so ahead of his time. He wrote that in 6 days at UCLA, renting a typewriter that he paid 50 cents an hour. That's mad. And he had it published for the first time in Playboy magazine. That's insane. You know how people like sort of discriminate any sort of writing and paper because they have some sort of judgment on it. And I love that Playboy gave Ray Bradbury its opportunity. I read that Hugh Hefner had only $400 for the whole story, and it was published in the third, fourth, and fifth edition.
It's a common theme. Certainly, not even Fahrenheit 451 is the first to address it. This idea that technology may ultimately be the downfall of humanity pops up in a lot of different works of literature and film. So, but this is definitely a very visceral, like I say, it's very pungent version of it.
I don't think that going against it is the way to go about it. I think that embracing the time you live in is also, not the time necessarily just the time you live in, but evolution. I think it's progressive. I think when the telephone came around, some people revolted against that because they thought, oh, we're never going to bother meeting, to one another. We're just going to be happy hearing each other's voices, but eventually that's not what we're complaining about now. It's not the fact that the telephone exists, but I think I use social media to talk about this movie, and if it brings any sort of awareness to people regarding either the book or for themselves, in order, like, it gave me the opportunity, to be honest, to realize that's, I'm attached to my phone 24/7. That's the way I communicate with my family, who I live far away from, and that's the way I keep in touch with my work, and I'm sort of on it constantly. And it's scary to admit that, but being aware is what helps me then to put it. I'm like, no, I'm making a conscious decision to not be shackled to my phone.
It was interesting with Michael B. Jordan coming into this, because he was kind of the odd man out a little bit. He knew that Ramin and I had the experience of working together before, so but what was amazing was how quickly that disappeared, mainly just because Michael's such a smart guy and a easy person to get to know and get along with, but yeah, it's hard to quantify it or say exactly what it is. It's not like we have secret hand gestures or anything. We just know each other.
Clarice has some depth and some. She's dealing with some sort of psychology that is very different from the characters I've played before. I played like women that probably were more assertive and more sort of assertive and confident in their own way. I think Clarice is such a survivor, and she's made many wrong choices in her time. And I think she's trying to do what she thinks is best without caring what people think. And at first, that's how you meet her. And I've always felt her very selfish. And I wanted her to have that sort of introverted, kind of dynamic and energy that, she doesn't communicate much with other people. She's very quiet. But then that's also different from the book.
In a way, Beatty encourages him to read as much as Clarice does. Beatty's trying to tell him, he's trying to tell him something that he can't tell him, that's against the rules. And yet, it's almost like Beatty got infected with the virus, and he can't. It's not something that he can get rid of, because once this starts humming, it doesn't stop. And it's private. He can't share it with anybody else, because he wants to survive. He doesn't want to lose. He doesn't want to stop being captain. He doesn't want to, because that's the modicum of control that he's able to have in this system. So he keeps trying to find a way to have his cake and eat it too, but he's holding himself to a different standard. But he believes that Montag could potentially be strong enough to endure this the same way that he does. And yeah, it's quite sad. Ramin always said that he really believed the engine of the story was the relationship between Montag and Beatty, that's what made it a piece of drama, not just, a polemic exercise or something. And it was tricky. We started, the first day of shooting was when I take Montag to his house and make him burn his own house. It was just a really odd way to start. But I just always looked forward to working with Michael, regardless of what the scene was, no matter how dark or troubling or upsetting it might be. I just always really look forward to getting in the ring with him.